everyone, this is Jordan with Torch Prep. The purpose of this video is to talk about the biology OST and the question types that will be on that test. So if you see, I am on the student practice site. Down here we have the biology practice test. So that's what I'm going to use today to model some of the question types that are on this test. So we choose select. You can either skip the TTS check or say I heard the voice. What this is that there is the option for students to have the questions spoken aloud to them. And so this is just checking that students can hear that feature. So I'm going to choose begin the test now and walk you through some of the items that are different on this test. So same general features that are up here. Nothing really new or unique to the test. There are still options to mark for review, to score the item when they're done, but something kind of new or unique is the speaking a question. So if you want the computer to speak the question to a student, that is an option. The first type right here is a drag and drop question. So it's always important for students to read the things over here on the left-hand side because this is going to be their instructions for what to do. So this says place only one molecule in each blank. You may use each molecule more than once. So when I drag this here, I can drag another one here. I don't even have to use all types necessarily. But after I've drag and dropped, let's say I don't want this here anymore. I actually can't bring it back to that space. It's going to require me to leave it in the box. So that's where the delete function is necessary. I can actually delete these options, but in order to drag and drop, I bring it back here, and I have to select the delete option again to remove something. So that's how drag and drop can work. Let's move to the next question type. This right here is a short answer question. What's important on the science test is that the correct information be there, not necessarily that they have great English conventions or there's elaborate writing. They don't care about that on the science test. They care about accurate information. So students should not fluff up their writing. So students can type out responses. There's options to bold it. So here I can bold, italicize, underline, or if I want to remove all formatting, I select this. You can number, you can bullet, you can indent, you can cut and paste, but the cutting and pasting can only happen within this text box. So you can't copy and paste things from outside here. You can highlight them, but you cannot copy and paste from out here into here. Something I also recommend is because sometimes these are computer scored, is that after a student, let's say they type out the word hypothesis, but they spell it incorrectly, that they would use the spell check feature so that they can see, oh, this is how I should have spelled it. That way, any computer scoring will read their word appropriately. All right, moving to the next question type. Here's another example of a drag and drop, but this one, there's actually it's not necessary to delete because there's only 3 options and they can only go in these 3 places. They can be moved around. But students, again, need to read carefully because it says, click on the graph that shows the greatest impact. So this is actually another one of those hot items, but we're going to call them item select again, where you can select an item, and that's a part of this. So I'm hovering over. Once it's selected, it turns orange, and dragging and drop is necessary. So this one has 2 parts to the question. And something to be aware of is that even if you only answer part of this question, it's going to look, so this is question 3, if you notice the triangle is no longer there, even though only half of the question was answered, it still shows it as if it were completely answered. So that's something for students to be careful of, is that they are answering the questions fully. Okay, another question type is just standard multiple choice. There's not much to say about multiple choice, so I'm going to move on to another question type. This is another drag and drop, but I want to pay particular attention to this because cladograms show up a lot on the biology OST. So please be sure that your students are familiar with how a cladogram works. And another question type is this graph. So there are bar graphs that in order to select the size, select a line, and it will highlight up to the appropriate size. So here's an example of a two-part question. So there's a part A, which is multiple choice, as well as you can see here, part B is also multiple choice. Sometimes part A is drag and drop and part B is multiple choice. It can be any variety of the types of questions, but something interesting to note is usually if there are two parts to a question, they are worth 2 points, but they do not actually rely on one another. So you could actually get part B correct and part A incorrect, and if it's a two-part question, you can still get one of your 2 points. Question 13 here is a multi-select. So this is select all of the statements that apply. Students should not choose all of them. They need to choose only the ones that apply to the question. Okay, here's a very interesting question type. This is actually a simulation. So this is going to ask them to select an enzyme, a substrate, and a temperature, and then start, and they're going to get results to the experiment. So I'm going to show you this briefly. They can choose different options, and they start, and the experiment goes, and the results are going to be listed here. They have the option to delete a trial or clear all of the rows. Now, students can't do this indefinitely. Sometimes there's only results for 4 experiments, or for some reason it only gives them 7. So if students want to be extra careful, they could use their scrap paper or the notes feature. The notes feature would be a good place to keep, the enzyme, when the enzyme is 2 and the substrate is B and temperature is 75, they can keep their notes right here as a way to save those trials in case it won't let them take any more. So that's how to use a simulation. Here's one other question type. This one is just simply entering a response. So this asks for event order, so numbers between 1 and 4. So that concludes the features of the biology test. Those are the question types, and it's highly recommended that you walk your students through these same types of things, especially the simulation, as they're things that are likely to maybe make a student anxious when there's something that they haven't seen before, but the more familiar they are, the more likely they are to apply the things that you've taught them in the classroom to this test.